Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show. On today's episode, I will be targeting my home river, the Lower American River. It is currently the last week of October, so I will be targeting some fall steelhead to end the season strong. The easiest way to take fall steelhead in my opinion is hands down with cured roe. Cured roe is probably one of my favorite ways to take fall steelhead, especially when the water is low and clear. I've hooked on my roe and attached it with an egg loop knot, and I'll have this to about a 20-inch leader, to a small swivel, and two very small BB split shot. I really like ultralight gear whenever I'm targeting fall steelhead, because more times than not, the fall run steelheads will tend to be a lot much smaller than their winter run cousins. We had a very limited river salmon season this year, and the reason I didn't film my river salmon season this year was because a lot of the most popular holes had a lot of anglers that showed up to fish. I wasn't exactly sure whether or not some anglers would feel comfortable knowing that they were going to be filmed while I was fishing these popular holes, so with that being said, I chose not to film my salmon season this year. Too often times, I feel that content creators never ask just because they can doesn't mean they should. So with that being said, that is the reason why I haven't posted any salmon fishing content on this channel. This steelhead ended up striking the roe like a freight train. I knew right away that I caught myself a steelhead and not a salmon because of the violent head shakes. The fall run steelhead on my local river tend to be on the smaller side, unlike their winter run cousins. So because of that, I really like to use ultralight gear or even light action tackle. The reason I like light action tackle versus my traditional winter steelhead gear is because these fall run fish will tend to be on the smaller side, and just by playing them with lighter gear, they can be a lot much more enjoyable. A lot of anglers often ask me why I don't use braid when I'm bouncing near the bottom, especially with bait. Well, one of the main reasons I don't like using braid is because whenever I'm fishing with bait, I find that mono is actually a lot much more abrasive resistant than braid. The only time I ever really use braid whenever I'm out salmon or steelhead fishing is if I am tossing lures where I really need to know what the lure is doing at all times through the water column. But whenever I am fishing bait, I really just like to use old school monofilament line as my main line. Attached to the monofilament line, I will run a small hyper swivel to avoid line twist. And as for the leader, whenever I'm fishing bait, I really like a much shorter leader, no more than 24 inches at most. I find that with a shorter leader, my response time whenever I'm fishing with bait will be a lot much quicker versus a longer leader. As for the technique itself, I've demonstrated this technique several times on this channel. Whenever I'm targeting steelhead in these low flows, I really like to just use a small swivel and a few split shot that's needed to get the bait close enough to the bottom. The goal is to keep the bait about eye level to these fish as they run upstream. The biggest mistake I see a lot of anglers do when fishing this technique is letting the bait drag on the bottom. Every time the sinker ticks near the bottom, I will lift the rod tip up, thus keeping the bait within eye level of these fish. The goal is to just slowly tick the bottom, not drag the bottom. This was a very nice fall steelhead for my local river, especially the Lower American River this time of year. This fish was a little bit on the darker side, so this tells me that he's probably been in the system all throughout the entire summer. The Lower American River is predominantly hatchery run steelhead. There are a handful of wild fish, but for the most part, a lot of these fish will be hatchery run fish. This was a very nice hatchery fish, a little bit darker for this time of year, but he is probably on his way up to the hatchery where the salmon are spawning. I am not retaining him, so I will return him to the water. Alright buddy, off you go. This time of year, these steelhead will actually sit just right below spawning salmon. There are a handful of salmon trying to spawn upstream, so I am going to target this little riffle downstream of the spawning salmon. I ended up getting a bite, and I knew right away I caught myself another steelhead. As I've mentioned in episodes in the past, whenever I'm targeting fall run steelhead, I find that with roe, an angler can make a lot of mistakes and still hook into a handful of really nice fish. If there are no special regulations or bait restrictions, I find that by fishing with roe, I can often catch quite a handful of fish. However, that doesn't exactly mean I don't know how to fish with artificials either. I don't mind using artificials, but where there are no restrictions, I will always have bait with me. I don't mind fishing with the artificials, but at the end of the day, I want to catch fish. If I can catch fish on an easier route, I will much rather take the easier route. That is my opinion on this matter of bait versus artificial. I know that there are quite a handful of anglers whom absolutely despise the roe fishing or the bait fishing in general when it comes down to salmon and steelhead or even trout in general. But in my opinion, when skipping out on bait, all an angler is doing is denying themselves fish that they could have caught. This was a much smaller fish, but I welcome all fish nonetheless. I'll show him to you guys real quick because he is very bright and pretty nonetheless. He was another hatchery fish, but a much smaller steelhead. I'll let him rest up a bit, and as soon as he recovers, I'll let him go. He ended up swimming away strong and healthy. In the fall, when the flows are low and clear, I really like to target faster water. Unlike the winter, when the river can often be swollen and very high, I find that these fall run fish, especially when the flows are low and clear, will often hold in the much faster water compared to their winter cousins. I ended up getting another bite, but somehow I was very late to react to this bite. I had to pick up the slack in order just to hook into this fish. If I were to be fishing artificials, more than likely I would have lost this fish. But because I am fishing with bait, this fish actually held onto the bait a lot much longer, allowing me to end up reeling in the slack and hooking into him. These fall run steelhead are so fun on ultralight tackle or light tackle in general. Unlike their winter cousins, these smaller fish will often give quite a bit of acrobatic performance and will fight all the way to the very end. I ended up losing this fish, however, but that's okay. I am targeting these fish with a barbless hook. It is my preference to target these fish with barbless hooks for the ease of catch and release. Also, this upper section demands it as part of its regulations. I don't mind fishing with barbless hooks. I've lost and landed many fish on barbless hooks. I ended up getting another bite, and I knew right away I caught myself a very nice steelhead. I wish the flows were a little bit higher this time of year because I think that would have brought in a lot much more fish, but I am pleased with the amount of fish that had been showing up to my local river. The last few years, the return of steelhead to my home river had rather been strong. I really do want to thank the folks at our Department of Fish and Wildlife for all the work they've done to maintain this fishery. This was another very nice fish. However, my GoPro was overheating, so it ended up shutting off before I netted the fish. I did, however, ended up landing this fish, and he was another very nice and bright hatchery fish. He was very bright and full of colors nonetheless, but he didn't want to participate on the release, so he ended up self-releasing. So far, the numbers of fish that I've seen come up despite the low flows were very promising. I believe that because of the Sacramento River salmon fishing closure is the main reason and the driving force behind why there are so many fish present on my home river. Typically this time of year, the Sacramento River season would be in full swing, and because of that, I don't think that many salmon would have entered my home river this time of year, but because of the closure, there were a ton of salmon, and because of that, there were the steelhead that were following the salmon. I ended up getting a bite, and I knew right away that I caught myself a very nice steelhead. The sun was going to set soon, so if I do land this fish, I will be a very happy camper. Soon this upper portion will be closed, and I won't be able to fish this portion until next year of 2026. So with that being said, if I land this fish, I am very happy to close out this fall steelhead season on my home river. But that's okay. I can focus on other species this fall. There are plenty of stripers to be caught this fall, and I'll start working on that real soon here. As for the fall trout season in our Central Valley, it will be a very odd year again. With the Golden Mussel closure, a lot of the reservoirs have either taken on all the boating pressure or have little to no boating pressure. I am eager to get a fall trout fishing season on the way as well, but I will wait for the weather to cool down a lot much more before starting my fall trout fishing season. This was a very nice steelhead. As it was coming in, I think this fish was actually a lot much brighter than that first fish I caught earlier in the day. These fall run steelhead on my home river are so pretty and very football shape in my opinion. Yes, I know they are mostly hatchery run fish, but I am just happy to have a handful of fish to catch. Alright buddy, off you go. Overall, it was just a great day to end my season on my home river. I caught a handful of steelhead for the camera today. I won't be targeting my home river again until next year opener. Thank you guys for watching, and until next time, tight lines y'all.